Film has changed a lot in its history. It all started in the late 1800s. After the huge success of the camera, they invented film. It's just a way to take so many pictures at once and play them back to back so quickly that it looks like it's moving. Back in the silent film era, so many people just started watching films just for the sake of moving picture. After that, they started working on editing. A short film about Santa Claus from 1898, I think the earliest, at least earliest surviving film of Santa Claus, impressed audiences because Santa Claus disappeared in the middle of it. What they really did was there was a cut where he was there for a second and then he was gone. But the audience did not know how they were able to pull it off. They were just so impressed how he disappeared. Obviously, film continued to evolve with sound, color, all new special effects. But there used to be a thing called movie magic, where the makers would find ways to make things that couldn't happen in real life appear on camera. Nowadays, most things are just heavily relied on CGI, green screen, all of this new technology. Even people at their own house with their own devices have way more access to things that filmmakers in the early 20th century didn't have. If you take a look at the Indiana Jones franchise, which started in the 80s, so many people liked that franchise because of all the stunts. There were real trucks, there were real tanks that they were riding on. It made the stakes feel just so high. The most recent film came out not that long ago, and it just has so much CGI, just not the same that it did back in the 80s. As a matter of fact, if you look back at the 80s, 90s, 70s, that whole era, so many of those successful films were original films. Star Wars started out as just an original film, which is now it's just a big franchise. There are so many iconic movies like Back to the Future that are just great movies, but movies like that just aren't as common anymore. Most of the highest grossing movies of all times are part of big franchises or directed by James Cameron. Actually, so there are 6 movies that have made $2 billion. 3 of them were directed by James Cameron. Avatar, which actually made almost $3 billion and is the #1 movie, that actually did start as an original film, so that is really the only exception. And then the sequel to Avatar is also on that list, but now it is a franchise. If I had to be completely honest, I really don't know anyone that's seen either of those films. And it seems like everyone only talks about them because of how much money they've made. And I guess you could count Titanic as an original film, but it's also based off of a real-life event that everyone is familiar with. Other than that, though, so many of them are part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. They could be DC movies, Star Wars, as I mentioned earlier. It's become a bigger franchise. And one of the most recent examples is the Super Mario Bros. Movie. The Mario franchise started back in the 80s, and there's different generations now that have nostalgia for it. And it made over $1 billion pretty easily. It's number 15 of all time. Granted, I'm not adjusting any of these for inflation. Still, that's just an example of how the most successful movies these days are really just part of franchises. The internet definitely plays a big role in films today because everyone can talk about it, share their opinions, even through things like internet memes also help. Like the most recent example I can think of, Barbenheimer. The trend is to watch the Barbie movie and then watch Oppenheimer right after it. And that really makes you wonder how much more money each of the movies are going to make because of that trend. Overall, it seems like more times than not, though, the filmmakers are just making the movie for money. Take Disney, for example, and their live-action remakes. It is the sad truth, though, that Disney would make more money off of a live-action remake of an older film than creating a new film. But we can still be optimistic about the future of cinema and see what's next. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one.